They might not have enough Facebook leads to keep someone busy every day full time, but they'll manage their inbounds and then they'll hit up the prospecting in the afternoon. Really, Facebook and circle prospecting, for whatever reason, are some of the most common combinations that we see out there, right? So welcome, friends and followers of Gus. We're here for Tuesday Topic. We normally transmit these every week inside the Power ISA Facebook group. I'll drop a link in the comments below. But today, due to technical difficulties, we're going live on my personal profile. Why not, right? Why not? So we are here, and once again, we are here telling folks, giving people tips, tricks, how to use an ISA for real estate, how to get the most out of that role. And this week we have returning guest Florencia coming in from our customer care team to talk about a role, a very frequent role. I wouldn't say it's our number one role, but I would say it's a role that's really, really necessary when you have more of a real estate team generating a lot of leads, that has a lot of people in the database. This is a role that's absolutely necessary, especially for the very, very large teams. This is the role that they want usually when they approach us, which is the lead manager role. What we call the lead manager role. So Florencia, why don't you give people a little bit of a hint? What are we talking about when we mean a lead manager ISA? What does that mean? And why don't we just start there?
Okay, so hello everybody. So I think the major difference between a lead manager ISA and just an ISA is a lead manager will do a little bit more than just the cold calling. I think it's more inbound leads, keeping the database organized, um, lots of communication and collaborating with the team to make sure, everybody's heading the right direction, giving lots of feedback. Obviously generating leads, qualifying them, and booking appointments, right?
Yeah.
But I think the major difference is it's just way more than just calling.
Yeah, I that's a really good way to put it, because the way it usually works is that the cold caller ISA tends to be a little bit more isolated than lead manager, right? They've
Right.
got a list to call, and they're going to make a lot of calls, and most of the calls are not going to go anywhere. That's just the nature of the cold calling, right? They're not going to go anywhere. Just going to work on the list, and when they get that one or two people that are interested, they're going to hand them off over to the team, right? So I've seen it be a little bit more isolated in general from the rest of the team. Lead manager, in my experience, is in the middle of it. Like they are in the
Mm-hmm.
middle of like talking to new inbound leads, working on that CRM, handing appointments and leads off to real estate agents, getting them back from real estate agents, getting feedback. Hey, this person's not ready. Nurture them a little while longer. This person was no show. There's a lot of, much more communication going on. And it doesn't just involve calling. You're right. It can be texting, can be email, phone calls, right? Anything and everything that gets a lead to interact with you. When we're doing cold outreach, at least we don't do it this way. We don't like cold text people, right? That you're probably going to get into trouble if you do that on a large scale nowadays. But we don't do it that way. We do calling. And that's a very, straightforward calling campaign when it's cold calling. When you're doing a lead manager, you're focusing on inbound leads, right? So when you get an inbound lead, they might take a phone call, they might take a text, they might even respond to an email first. So it's I agree with you. I think it's very different, and it takes a different set of skills, right? It takes a different set of
Mm-hmm.
skills to be successful in one versus the other. It's a different personality profile. It's a different kind of person to really excel. And I want to be, clear with folks, because a lot of ISAs do both roles. They'll do some cold calling, some prospecting, and they'll do some database calling, inbound lead calling. I'm not saying you can't do both, but people tend to be better at one than the other, is my experience. They tend to
Yeah,
be
that's
better
true.
at one, right? So what makes a better lead manager, or what are the kind of skills that you see that a lead manager has to have to be successful?
For sure, they have to have strong communication skills, problem solving skills. Also, because I've seen, like you said, a lot of huge teams really need a lead manager ISA because that ISA is booking for what, maybe five agents to eight,
Yeah.
10 agents on the team. So they have to know who to give that appointment to, you know?
Yeah.
So I think more than anything, I think is they have to be very organized, strong communication skills, And let's see, I think tech savvy as well. It's very
Yeah.
important that they're very tech
Oh, you know
savvy.
what? Yes, that is a big, that you're so right, because a lot of the cold callers, I don't know why this is actually, but a lot of the cold callers tend to not be very tech savvy for some reason.
Yeah,
I'm not
because they
even
only
sure
use
why.
dialers.
Yeah,
It's
they know
only
how to use a
dialers, like
dialer.
not really
Yeah.
CRMs.
They're not
Mhm.
like, hey, open up the CRM and try this dialer, get the data. Like, that's usually not a good use of their time, because they're not usually very good at that. They're not, I don't know, and I don't know why this is. This is kind of a, again, there's always exceptions, but across the board,
Mhm.
in my experience, the cold callers tend to be really good on the phone. And if they could use a real actual cell phone, they'd be happier than actually being on the
Mhm.
computer, on an automatic dialer and doing that, because that'd be a lot more comfortable for them. A lot of them sometimes are not very comfortable with technology, not necessarily. But the lead manager, I kind of feel, is a must. They got to be well versed with software, got to be comfortable using different software tools, really comfortable on things like social media. They can navigate social media at a high level. They can figure out, right, how to navigate a CRM in most cases. They got to be comfortable with that. They can't be intimidated by the technology. I one time interviewed this person for a lead manager role, lead manager. I remember this very clearly. And she was amazing on the phone. Okay, she was just sounded really, really good. Had done a
Mhm.
lot of sales over the phone. Was really, really amazing, 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 amazing. Isaac, just wow, this is a dream come true. Then I told her, let's just check the, because this is part of the process, right? And I didn't do this early on, to my detriment. Let's check a couple things. Let's go navigate to this website. Try out. Let's see how your tech skills are. And she literally had to ask me, so where do what's the URL and where do I put it? Like, she didn't
Oh
know like how to
goodness.
how to navigate to a website, right?
Uh-huh.
And I was like just thrown away, and again, a great person on the phone. And if they were in a physical call center, they'd have someone they could just ask and just do it for me, right? Just log me
Mhm.
in, like get me on the phone, like do what you have to do to get me on the phone, and I'm good, right? Just show me where everything is, and I'm fine. But that was a big lesson for me, saying, hey, don't assume that just because someone can do call center work, they can be great on the phone, that they're just going to
Yeah.
be really tech savvy just because, right? Because they're a younger person or whatever. It really depends. It really depends. So the tech savviness is a must. Obviously, she was not good for that lead manager role. Great for another kind of role, but not for
Mhm.
that lead manager role. It was going to be too hard. She's going to spend 90% of her time figuring out the software and not doing the calls, not doing the text messages. So I think that's a big, big, big part of being a lead manager. You got to be comfortable. You don't have to be like you have to be like an engineer. You don't have to be, but you got to be able to navigate
Yeah.
software and then know how to ask the right questions, right? Like because when people are when they're confident. So I don't know how to explain this, but when people kind of know how to use software and they can't do something, they're like, why can't I do this? Hey, can you help me out? So this thing is weird. Help me out. And when someone like is insecure about their tech skills, they don't ask a question. They're like, it
Yeah.
must be me. It can't be the software. I'm the one that's wrong. The software is right and I'm wrong. I got to figure this out
Mhm.
on my own. So they'll take like 10 times longer to figure something out when they should just ask. I think when someone's more confident in their skills, hey, I'm a smart person and I can't figure this out. Can you help me out? This thing is weird. Help me out here. And I think that's a big difference between someone that's more tech savvy versus someone that's not.
I've seen a lot of really good, obviously lead manager I say is be very proactive, where it's like, okay, I don't know
Yes.
the answer. Let me just go on YouTube. Or I'll just Google it. Like they don't even bother to like, oh, I need you for like come help me. No. It's like I'll figure it out. I'll Google this.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's such a good point because honestly, what task in any of the major CRMs, what task isn't covered in some kind of YouTube video or maybe a blog post,
Yeah.
right? Like you'd be really hard pressed to find something that hasn't been documented through the CRM's own, YouTube video, YouTube channel, or a user. The really good CRMs have a lot of people creating content for them, right? There's a lot of people that like build their brand and their career on helping people use Commissions Inc., Boomtown, Follow Up Boss. I mean, they're just these gurus that teach other people how to use these tools. So 100%, Floyd. Yeah, the people that are proactive are going to pretty much find the answer themselves, or they're going to gather some information and ask a much better question than just how do I do this, right? Because the answer's out there, right? Chat GPT, Google, YouTube, you name it, can probably come up with a decent answer to most people's questions. But you got to have kind of that proactivity, right? You got to kind of be a self-starter and figure some of these things out on your own. And that's what I love to see when the clients, they have a great lead manager ISA, that just figures things out for them, right? Of course, they need the training. They need to train them how to use your CRM. They got the basics laid out. But when a small thing comes up that they can solve it on their own, it saves everybody time.
Oh, for sure. And I think because they're working with more inbound leads, um, they definitely focus on getting results, they pay attention to details, all those things.
Yeah, the leads that they call are more valuable. The leads that they
Yeah.
call, I'll just go ahead and say it. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The leads that the
Mhm.
lead manager calls cost way more. And yeah, let me think about that. They cost way more than the ones from the cold lists, right? Because the cold list is just by its nature is not worth a lot. It's a cold list, right? If you do nothing with it, nothing happens. No one's actually asking you for anything. Inbound leads cost money. Inbound leads cost a little bit of money or a lot of money. Like your typical run-of-the-mill Facebook ad lead is probably going to cost you $7, $8, $9, $10, right? Each lead. That's the least expensive lead you can find. It's the lowest cost of all of the leads, right? And if you are talking about Zillow.com, Realtor.com, some of those leads are $600, $800, $1,000 per lead. So that and a lot of these teams that do a large volume, the front facing part of their company, the people in the trenches are their ISA team. They might have 1, 2, 3 ISAs. And when we're talking about lead managers, I have seen a lot of teams even do like a mixed kind of a team. They have a combination of in-house ISAs and they've got virtual ISAs. They'll do both. Some of the larger teams, so they'll do combinations of those. But they've got usually the ISA is the front-facing part of the company, like that, and that's usually how they run things, right? So yeah, the things that they call are very different, and the conversion rate is very
Yeah.
different, right? I mean, if you get 1 out of 100 leads to convert in cold calling, you're one of the best. That's awesome. Great job, right? If you get 1 out of 100 for inbound, you're out of a job in a week, right? You can't, it's
Mhm.
not good enough. 1 out of 10 is really good. 1 out of 5 is even better, right? So 1 out of 10, I'd say is about average. 1 out of 5 is we're probably one of the best. Like that's a high level, like a high performing team. Great ISA. So look at that's 10 times, 10 to 20 times difference. 10 to 20 time difference between the kind of leads you would expect a cold calling ISA to convert versus an inbound ISA. And I'm using the lowest converting ones, by the way. I'm thinking like Circle Prospect, 1 out of 100 is great in Circle Prospect. In inbound Facebook or Google leads, 1 out of 10 is a solid conversion rate. 1 out of 10 leads, right? So into like an appointment. So that's kind of what I mean. So yeah, very different from that perspective, right? So yeah, I think those are another important difference between these roles, and people need to think about them as roles, because like I said, an ISA can do both roles. One ISA can do both roles. A really common setup that I see is a lead manager role that they're handling inbound Google, inbound Facebook leads, and then in the afternoons they'll do Circle Prospect. That's a
Yeah,
really
that's
common
a really common one.
combination. Yeah, because the teams always have Circle prospecting lists they can hit. They might not have enough Facebook leads to keep someone busy every day full time, but they'll manage their inbounds and then they'll hit up the prospecting in the afternoon. Really, Facebook and Circle prospecting, for whatever reason, are some of the most common combinations that we see out there, right? So for sure, people can do both roles. And I think those kind of calls are a lot closer than people realize. The kind of conversations you're going to have. It's because the Circle prospecting lead has no context. They're not angry at you like an expired or FSBO, right?
Mhm.
But it's not the same. It's not exactly. I'm gonna humor me on this. It's closer to an inbound lead than an expired listing is. How about that? It's closer to that. It's about just being nice on the phone, being pleasant, and getting them to talk to you, right? That's really what it's about. That's
Yeah.
really what that role is. That's why I think that's closer to an inbound ISA. So, I mean, yeah, this is some really good stuff, Flor. Anything else you want to throw in there that describes a really good lead manager, or is there anything we're missing out here?
Well, what I've seen is a lot of people want the lead managers to make sure, because a lot of agents really don't have the time to keep, like, nurture, have a follow-up plan with their database, you know? So I think if you want that, definitely a lead manager that can keep that organized, create a follow-up plan, just never let them forget you.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. If I had to, like probably put out priorities, what lead managers do on a daily basis, I think when we're talking about what they call, obviously new inbound leads is always priority number one whenever they come in. Then it's new inbound leads that haven't been contacted yet, like within the first 7 days, within the first 10 days. Those brand new leads that you're following up, following up, following up. Then after that, I would say it's probably leads you're following up with on a longer term basis, like contacted leads that you're following up a month later, 2 months later, 3 months later, right? That you're nurturing, like nurture kind of leads. Okay. I would call those like those scheduled follow-ups with contacted leads, And they might be a weekly follow-up, monthly, quarterly, like they add up. It adds up very quickly. And then probably the lowest priority would be calling the pond. Like uncontacted leads, it's always the largest part of your database, is the huge glut of uncontacted leads, or people that have become uncontacted, right? They haven't responded to anything in the last month, 6 months, 12 months, right? And you can always sprinkle in other kinds of leads, like who has been active in the CRM today, right? If you have a CRM that has a website attached to it, like a lot of them do, you can see which of the leads have been active on the CRM. Who's been active today? Great. Let me ping them. Ask them. Let's check in. Text, a little bit of text, give them a call, see who was in there. And that's, they can need a little bit of help right now, right? So they kind of go down those kinds of tasks are usually what they're going to be focused on. From highest priority to lowest priority is usually what they're doing. And whenever they get a conversion, either it's a live transfers are the best, because one of the biggest issues that lead managers have is that they'll book an appointment and it might be unattended, right? That's a very common scenario. Some internet leads, 50% of the appointments are not going to show up to the appointment. They're not going to pick up the phone. They're not going to turn on the Zoom. They're not going to show up at the office. 50% are just not going to be no show. That's typical. One of the ways to get ahead of that is through live transfers. Try to live transfer the lead into the agent. So you've got an ISA on the phone with the lead, having a good conversation with them, boom, 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 trying to talk them in there. And then at the same time, they're texting the agent, hey, got a live one for you. Be ready. Like, don't miss this call. And then they're trying to live transfer them right then and there. And they're going, hey, hey, Floyd, I've got, Bob here on the line. He's looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath home in the Woodridge suburb. He wants to find something bigger because his family is growing. I'll leave you guys to it. I'll hop off here. Boom, got it, right? So that's really what you want. Just be fast, be gone, right? As a handoff. And then, folks, this is much more true for lead managers than for cold callers. That handoff between the ISA and the agent has to be strong. Like Flor said, you gotta have that good communication, right? That good communication is when things go great, that's awesome, keep it going. And when things don't go great, hey, what could the ISA have done to do better? If anything at all, right? Sometimes the call doesn't go the way you want, that's fine. But what could the ISA have done to do a better job? A more qualification, this person needs a little bit more nurturing. I want some people that are further along in the process. That's the feedback you got to give, because that handoff can be treacherous, right? That handoff has to be a strong handoff, has to be a clear handoff. And another thing lead manager ISAs do, which a lot of agents do not like, agents don't like this, they're not happy about this, is for some of the larger teams, they enforce policy, okay? They enforce lead budgets. They take away leads. If you haven't been calling them, they reassign them to other people. Sometimes the ISA has to be the bad guy, right? The ISA has to go in there and implement policy. Yeah, you've got, hey, Mr. Agent, you've got 35 leads on your table. 5 of them haven't been called in the last week. Policy says I got to take those back. I'm going to give them a call. And if I get in touch with them, they're going to somebody else, okay? Like that, sometimes the ISA has to be the bad guy in that kind of situation, because they want to grab these leads. And for the team to spend so much money generating these leads, they want that. They want people to be on their toes. They want it to be competitive. They want them to not be slacking on some of these leads. They want to enforce the lead budget, which means how many leads can you have assigned to you at any given time? How many? If you're an agent, my number would be 3,000. I want 3,000. Well, no, right? Because you're not going to call them. You're not going to respond to them. You're not going to pay attention to that many leads. Most agents on most teams shouldn't have more than maybe 15 to 20 assigned to them, maybe 30, right, at any given time. And because you're not really going to do much more with more leads, you're going to drop them, right? If you have way more than that assigned to you. So guess who is the lucky person usually checking out that policy? It can be the ISA, right? And if an appointment isn't attended, they go get bounced back to the ISA. If a lead becomes unresponsive, right, they go to the ISA. So sometimes the ISA enforce a lot of these policies, but they're the bad guy. I'm being a little funny with that. But what they really want to do is that no leads get lost in the process, right? Every step of the funnel, you can lose people. You got 100 leads coming in, of which 50% were contacted, of which another 50% of those want to talk to an agent, of which another 50% of those didn't show up, and then they get smaller and smaller and smaller every step of the process. You don't want to lose people. It's called a leaky funnel, like a leaky pipe, right? You don't want leakage in these funnels. If people are not making it to the next one, you want to double check, triple check that they're in the right status, that you don't miss them, you don't lose them. Okay. That's something that an ISA can help with, because that is not an easy problem to solve. It's a moving target. Every day is different. Every day it changes. Someone's got to be taking a look at that. And a lot of times it's the owner, it's a team leader. But on a day-to-day basis, they can hand it off and have a lead manager jump in and help them. Just keep it tight. Keep it tight. Make sure that everyone's doing what they're supposed to do, that everyone's under budget, no one's missing leads, all that fun stuff.
You know what's another? I just thought of this. A big difference is with a cold caller and a lead manager. A cold caller needs a script. They want to stick to the script. If you think about it, a lead
Yeah.
manager is always like, wait, can I make this my own? Can I, rewrite this and make it my own? Or the flow is a little bit, because it's following up and nurturingly. So it's like, hey, Lisa, I saw like 2 weeks ago you were looking at this property. So they like to make it more their own. And I've noticed with cold callers, it's like, their script is so important,
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Because for a cold caller, if you have a bad script, you're not getting anywhere. You're not going to get past 5 seconds into the call. You're not going to go anywhere for that. So I agree with you. And I think for the lead manager, since it's an inbound call, there's definitely much more of an emphasis on relationship building. Right? It's much more important. Well, not that it's not important for cold calling, because it is, but you have more of a chance to do it as a lead manager. Because number one, more people pick up the phone. Just there. Period. In the story. You're going to talk to more people as a lead manager than as a cold caller. You're just going to have more conversation just because of the job. Nothing you're doing right or wrong. Just because of the job, nature of the job, you're going to be talking to more people. And for a lot of teams, they want their ISA. They don't want them to be like a shark, bad, just beating people into submission. They don't want that as a lead manager, actually.
Yeah.
They want a concierge. They want someone that's going to take people by the hand, give them a great customer experience, and since it's going to be the first person that they're encountering on the team, they want that experience to be really pleasant and very useful. And if the ISA is not pushing and doing the hard sell and doing the hard close, they prefer that, right? For a lot of their inbound lead opportunities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, cold callers are more sharky. They love to call. I've had so many ISAs who are like, yep, I want to get in there. I want to dial back-to-back dials. That's my thing. And I'm like, wow, that's cool. I have respect for both because I think it does get overwhelming. I mean, nobody wants to do the cold calling, but there's certain ISAs that really love it. They like it. They like the back-to-back phone calls.
If cold calling were easy to do, you wouldn't need Power ISA. As simple as that, right? I think that'd be like, oh, easy peasy. And yeah, 100%. I think that's kind of the nature of the beast. And we'll be talking more about the cold caller role, I guess, on a future episode. But when it comes to lead manager, yeah, I would say that one of the superpowers, one of the great skills you want to see with a lead manager ISA is that ability to build relationships and build rapport with people, right? And here's a funny thing, Flor. One of the things that always kind of puzzles me a little bit, but I see it play out all the time. This plays out all the time. Is that sometimes, and this might be one of the biggest psychological tricks ever, but it works. Okay. A lot of times, people tend to gravitate towards either that cold caller role or that more lead manager role in general, right? And, one of the main reasons is because of the rejection, right? So
Yeah.
and so one of the things that I think is kind of funny is that it's not like the lead manager doesn't get any rejection, right?
Mhm.
Like that's just that. I mean, they're going to be rejected 90% of the time. If you're good, you're going to be rejected 90% of the time. The difference is the cold caller is 98% of the time, 99% of the time, right? But that 8%, 9%, sometimes I think people, read it a little bit too much into that sometimes, right? But you know what the biggest difference is? It's in ourselves when we pick up the phone. We think it's very different. And hence we behave very differently. We're more willing to make the calls. And I say this as an agent too. We're more willing to make the calls to the inbound lead.
Mhm.
And the difference is literally 90%, rejection to 98% rejection. This one's way easier. Well, I mean, maybe they'll be a little bit less mad. They might not be mad at you. They're still going to reject you in a nicer way. There's a lot of rejection. 98%,
Yeah, that's
90%
true.
versus 98. I think it's kind of funny. But the way it plays out is that people are much more willing to make the call for the inbound lead for whatever reason, right? You convince yourself this is going to be a way easier call. 90 to 98, it's easier, but is it that easy? It takes some
Oh,
work, takes
that's
some
true.
skill,
Yeah.
it takes some preparation, right? But again, I don't at this point, I go, you know what? I'm not against it. I don't fight against it. I don't argue with people about it because that's how it plays out. People are a certain type of person gravitates towards that role, and I think it's fine. And a certain type of person, we need them for the cold calling role because not
Mhm.
only is it a higher rejection rate, it's just hard to call. In general, it's going to be a more difficult call, and I think they're right. I think that is accurate. It just doesn't tend to be as different as people assume sometimes, right? 90
Yeah.
to 98 is, a little bit, it's not that big a difference. It's not that big a difference in kind of the grand scheme of things. But yeah, I would agree that the cold call is harder. It's a more difficult call. In general, it's a more difficult call to make. So I'll give them that. I'll say that.
Maybe because like the lead manager is just a little bit more fun. You do like emails, a little, like I said, a little bit more than just the
That's true.
calling. That's the only difference, basically.
And I think cold calling does have more of that kind of boiler room, let's get those dials in, dial for dollars, it does have a lot more of that culture, a lot more of that skill set. You need that skill set like, to get pumped up and get ready for those calls. I think
Mhm.
that's necessary. It's a lot more than necessary kind of in the cold calling space. But anyways, yeah, both, we love both roles. Both roles are
Yeah.
necessary. Most real estate teams need one or the other, or they can need a little bit of both. Like I mentioned, a good combination of the two. But I think, but lead manager, it's a great one. It's a role that came later for Power ISA because we started as a 100% cold calling company. We only did cold calling for the first couple of years. Lead manager came in afterwards, right? Like when larger teams approached us and said, you know what, I'm, my cold calling, I don't have a large cold calling department. I have a huge budget for lead generation, buying all these leads, and I want to get more out of it, right? They're already spending the money. That's the important thing to understand. They're making this huge investment in online lead generation, and they don't want any excuse to have no one calling these leads because they understand it. How many appointments you get, how many deals you get is a function of how many phone calls you make, right? Of course, there's the quality of everything, for sure. But if you're not making the calls, you never get to the quality part. You never get to your personality. You never get to the script, right? If you're not making enough calls. So lead manager, one of the biggest reasons teams hire it is because they're seeing how much money they're spending on these online leads. They're seeing how much money they're getting from the commissions on the sales, and I go, man, I should be getting more. I don't know a single team leader that. Let me think about that. I actually don't know a single team leader that says, man, my conversion rate is awesome. Like they all know that it can be better. They know. Like if they've
Yeah.
seen how the sausage is made, they're like, and they can brag about it that they're good, better than average. It's great. But when they know, when you know, right? Think, I know we could be better. I know they know. Especially when they have a team, like a large team, you've got other people in there. You've got to have success to other agents. Agents are not employees. They're independent contractors. There's only so much you can make them do, right? There's only so many things you can ask them to do. That's why the ISA, right, who's a salaried member of your team, is so important because you can tell them exactly what to do, at what time to call, how many times to call, all these things that, at least in the US, as a contractor, you can't really do. You can't really do. Not really. People make their own hours. People, decide when to take that call or not, right? That's just the reality of it. And that's why the large teams, I don't know a single large team that does internet lead generation that doesn't have someone in the ISA role, at least part-time. Let me say that, at least part-time. They've got someone in this role. They just know it's 100% necessary, especially for the online lead gen.
Yeah, for sure. They need to contact them within like the first 5 minutes? Is that what you recommend?
100%. And you know, and the teams that have ISAs, their goal is usually within the first 30 seconds, right? Lead comes
30
in, boom,
seconds, yeah.
jump on it, right? Like immediately.
Mhm.
For everyone else, 5 minutes is great. And Flo, most agents would get decent results if they just called them the same day, quite frankly, right?
Mhm.
Like for people that don't have ISAs yet, I mean, guys, if you just called your leads every day, then you probably would do
While
decently
it's still
well.
fresh.
Yeah, they're still fresh, right? But for the large teams that have a lot of competition, that got really, really high converting leads, they want to be first. It pays to be first. If you're buying, like I said, those $600 leads from Zillow, $800 leads from Realtor.com, they're going to 3 other agents or 2 other agents, or I forget what the number is. It pays to be first. It pays to be first. So it's a little bit of a different, you know, setup. But yeah, 100%. They really wanted to be speed to lead. Speed to lead is one of the biggest reasons that teams get ISAs, speed to lead. And then, you know, I would say there's 3 main problems. Number 1, speed to lead. Lead manager helps solve that. Number 2, it is that nurturing. Agents can be really good at that first call. They can be excellent at the first call. And boom, the world record, you know, gold medal of the first call people, right? Making the second call, third call, fourth call, fifth call is challenging for agents. It's not easy to do, okay? And if there's any team leaders, you know, watching this, I know you're nodding, saying, "Oh my God, yeah, 100%." That's just how it
Yeah.
works. The ISA can help you solve that. So speed to lead, nurturing, and number 3, rekindling the old leads, right? Number 3, folks, be honest. As agents, we never call the old leads. Like we just don't. Right? You're busy with the now business, you're following up, you're trying to get people to convert for now business is usually your focus. Rarely, if ever, do people call their old leads. I just had one of our clients, you know, we onboarded them. They signed up a couple of weeks ago, 13,000 old leads, right? Not 13,000 leads in the database. No. 13,000 leads they haven't contacted or been in touch with for over a year. Just
That's a
that.
lot.
13,000 leads. And I'm like, man, you know, this is a huge opportunity here. Like this is
Yeah, there's a bunch of hidden
important.
gems
A
that are
bunch of
just
it. If only like 0.1% of those leads are interesting, like a really low, really low, that's 13 transactions you're not going to get if you don't make the call. 13 deals you're losing, you're missing out on. If only 0.1%. If only 0.1% of those would work out, there's 13 deals you're not getting. Someone else is going to get them. They're going to transact, right? Might not be with you, but there's a huge opportunity, even with those old leads, to rekindle them and get in touch with them and kind of just ask where they're at in the process, add some value, right? But it's never going to happen if nobody makes that call. So really, really important to understand. It's a third reason people get ISAs, but it usually tends to be one of the strongest ones, right? One of the strongest ones is
definitely.
getting the most out of their old leads in their old database.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I
Cool.
agree.
Awesome. Great one. So, hey, whoa, we already went over 30 minutes. So, love it. You know, Florida, it's always a joy. Thank you so much for your time. I want to be mindful of the time. Thanks for joining us once again here on Tuesday Topics. And I look forward to seeing you here on the next one. Thanks so much, Florida.
For sure. Thank you for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Awesome.
See you next week.
Bye.